iFanboy at San Diego Comic-Con 2012 is brought to you by Seagate, the storage of choice for creative professionals. I'm here with Mark Waid at the Thrillbent table booth area.
We're live from San Diego Comic-Con 2012.
It's true. You're broadcasting now.
I got my broadcasting voice on.
You should get a hat with the thing.
I know, a little press package.
Now you've got the Eisner winner smile.
I do. In fact, I never knew it existed. I never had the Eisner winner smile before. I've never won an Eisner before, and now to have won 3 in one ceremony back to back, that was put me over the moon. I was thrilled.
Now I don't want to say it was a comeback because you've definitely been around for a long time, but you know, the last couple of years, I think you've seen a real resurgence with the sort of mainstream audience and doing all sorts of different things than you were before.
Yeah.
You know, how does it feel to sort of be, you know, re-accepted and you know, lifted up again?
It does kind of feel validating. That's the thing. From my perspective, I haven't been doing anything different than I've been doing all my professional career, which is I just love comics and I want to tell stories. But I guess branching out into digital seems to have gotten me some attention, although that wasn't the goal, but I'll take it. But mostly it's, you know, as far as the Eisner audience goes, the mainstream superhero comics audience goes, it's the Daredevil stuff that really helped put me back on the map, and that's all due to Steve Wacker, who was the editor, who pulled me in and said, do this. It was all due to Marcos Martin and to Paulo Rivera and his dad, the artists who make me look good every month. And now we got Chris Somney on board, and you know, Michael Allred's going to do an issue. And I saw the pencils the other day, and they look phenomenal. I got a murderer's row of artists here. So I appreciate the Eisner, but I also am aware that I could be a monkey at a keyboard to some degree.
Well, it's interesting because, I mean, you've been around the industry for a long time, and we've seen a lot of artists come and go, and you really do have a team of guys who are not necessarily superstars, but they're all like the kind of guys that cartoonists talk about.
Yeah.
The guys that are just, they know the craft really well. I mean, you must be in a position to really appreciate that and just see how good they are. Like, what's it like to work with these guys now?
It always is, and it's always been that way. I mean, you know, my favorite guys to work with have always been Barry Kitson, who never gets enough publicity from what he does. He's brilliant. Michael Ringo, who is the cartoonist. Mike, before he passed away, was one of those guys that everybody held up as an exemplar within the industry. And yet, you know, he never moved the needle at the top of the top 10 charts or whatever. But it didn't matter to me, and it didn't matter to him. It was about storytelling. It's about doing a story well and having fun with what you do and not having to feel like you're competing with Jim Lee or with Mark Silvestri or with whatever the hot new flavor is, just telling the story.
But eventually, like, I think the stuff that Paulo did and the stuff that Marcos did, you know, it became the big thing.
I think that was awesome too. Again, when Paulo's big problem was he was a utility infielder. He was always doing stuff for Marvel for 10 years, but it was one shot here or one small assignment there, and he didn't really have a home base to call his own. So I think when he finally landed on Daredevil for a length of time, it gave him a place where people could find him. And the same with Marcos Martin, is to be able to, even though he did a few issues, that was the place to find him.
Yeah. I want to touch real quickly on the end of Irredeemable, and you know. You were on that for a while. That was a really sort of refreshing comic. How do you feel about the ending now that it's sort of all done?
It's a little bittersweet. I mean, I've been doing it for 3 years, and I've been living with it for 4. You know, I love that book. I love those characters, but it really kind of felt time. It's a cliche to say if the characters write themselves, but there's something to that. There's the idea that the best moments of those stories and those books are when I would sort of let the characters dictate to me what would happen next or what felt right. And I don't mean like they literally say things. What I mean is that you're sitting there and you're writing a scene and you're stuck. And the reason you're stuck is because you're trying to make the characters go in a direction that they don't want to go, and so subconsciously you're being held back. So once you let those characters, once you say, okay, well, what if we turn left? What if we turn right? What if we did something new here? And then the story starts flowing again. That's what that means. That when you say the characters write themselves. So they'd kind of written them to that point. They'd kind of written them up to that area where it was about over with, and they let me know. Yeah, so it was about time.
And like the end of Irredeemable was a bit of a left turn. I don't think any of us saw that coming. How long did you have that in mind?
I had that in mind for quite a while. I'd had that in mind almost since the first. Not necessarily the choreography of it, but the sentiment of it I'd always had in mind. because it's, you know, it's, I kind of enjoyed, without spoiling anything for those who haven't seen it, I kind of enjoyed the fact that for 3 years people sort of took it as a cynical take on Superman, and as it turns out, it's a love letter to Superman.
Well, I mean, but it just makes sense. You love Superman, more than I'm going to say anyone.
Pretty much, I think, and certainly love Superman more than anybody but my immediate family. Yes, you know.
Yes, that you can definitely say that safely. Yeah. And then the other big thing that's going, you have a lot of big things going on, is Thrillbent. You've made a bold entree into digital comics and sort of changing the way you think about, you know, distributing and all that. How did you approach? You know, how did you begin to approach that? When did you start thinking about this as a thing that you needed to do?
I really started a couple of years ago when I was working at Boom Studios, and I was looking at how incredibly expensive the print costs were becoming as the print medium was contracting, and they were, the costs were becoming more and more escalated. And I was talking to other small publishers, and they were having the same problems. We got to a point where, with some books, and they would be considered reasonably successful books, you were paying almost as much in printing as you were for every other aspect of the publication, for all the editorial content, for all the creative content. Well, that didn't make any sense. You know, you're for a $3.99 book, and suddenly you're bringing home like 30 cents a copy profit after you pay out the printer. That's no way to do a business. So the idea was, how do we flip the paradigm? How do we get our production costs paid for first, and then if we want to roll out from print there, do digital first and then roll out from print. It's still it's a work in progress, but Thrillbent always has been. We launched about 12 weeks ago as a fairly soft launch with just one strip that's mine and Peter Krause's. The guy did Irredeemable with me. But in the next few weeks, we're going to be rolling out more content now that we kind of got our sea legs. So Gail Simone's doing a strip with us. We've got James Tynion IV, who is doing some stuff over DC. He's doing a strip with us. Kurt Busiek's doing a story. A bunch of people are doing new work with us, and a lot of it is, I mean, it's all over the map. Is it horror? Some of it is it science fiction? Is it, you know, real world stuff? We're not limited in any genre. We just want people to come in that digital space and play and teach each other the tricks of digital storytelling that we're just now discovering.
What have you picked up in terms of, I guess, your approach to the format of it? Obviously, it's not the same thing as the traditional comic book page.
Right.
You know, you got shorter lengths, not animation, but using the space to fill in the word balloons and change the pacing and things like that.
Exactly.
You know, what have you noticed about that? What conclusions have you come to by now?
The hardest part of it has been writing in a shorter format that way, and writing what is essentially 4 to 5 pages per week. If it were a print comic, it would feel like about 45 pages a week. And doing that with a strong cliffhanger at the end where you want to come back next week, and yet you tell enough of the story where people feel like they got a satisfying chunk for visiting you that week. That's the middle ground. I don't want people to, it's free, but I don't want people to feel like, oh, I'm only going to go back every 2 months and just come back for one page a day thing. At the same time, I don't want to give people so much in one chunk that they feel like, oh, I can't read this, you know, in 5 minutes on my lunch break, so I'll come back to it later, and then they don't come back. So that seems that we seem to have found about the right length of storytelling. And then in terms of the storytelling gimmicks, the tricks, I don't want to say gimmicks or tricks, it sounds like it's, you know, it's not a real valid tool. Storytelling tools, digital storytelling tools, just using things that, you know, balloons coming in and out, just changing the layouts of panels, little things like that that are still comics because they're not animation. They're not wresting from you, the reader, the control at which you absorb the story. You're still paging it along as you want to. You're still in charge of how the story flows. Whereas if you put animation, voices, sound effects and stuff in it, the moment you do that, then it's just animation. Then you're just watching it. Then it's just watching something happen. I want you as a comic reader to be involved in an interactive experience.
I mean, and you've been working with a very similar format for a very long time. You know, this must be one of the bigger challenges in sort of changing the way you think about it.
It's an enormous challenge. It's a huge challenge, but you know what? That's the kind of challenge that at age 50 makes you get up in the morning and go, okay, I got new things to learn, so I'm all good.
Now, as sort of an aside to that, now it's correct. You sold a bunch of comics in order to sort of get this going, which is symbolic, I think, in its meaning that it's the old way of thinking, saving all your comics, keeping them around to be valuable, and now you're doing this other. Like, what was that transition? Was it hard for you to get rid of them?
It was.
Have you moved a couple of times?
No, you know what? It was. I mean, they're all on consignment, which means that if I wake up in the middle of the night with a sweaty, screaming fit going, I must have my world's finest comics back, I can probably get some of them back. But it really was time to, I mean, I've had those comics, I've been curating this amazing, astounding comics collection available at blastoffcomics.com for all my entire life. And it's the first time since I'm 4 years old that I don't have a comics collection. It's very strange. But I felt like, A, it was time to pass those books along to other people who would enjoy them, and B, you know what, I want to put my money where my mouth is. I'm showing you that I'm serious about this, and I see this as a wave of the future. It's not necessarily the way things are going to go, but it's certainly a way things are going to go, and I want to do it right. And I don't want to get up there and do it for 12 weeks and go, I ran out of money, I guess I'm done, I'll go back to writing Daredevil. I want to be able to keep funding it and keep fueling it. So.
Well, thanks very much. It's a pleasure to talk to you, and congratulations again.
Thanks very much. Good seeing you.
So Ron, I got this iPad.
Okay.
But I want to watch movies on it. How do I do that?
The Seagate GoFlex satellite hard drive. Thank you to Seagate for sponsoring all of our San Diego Comic-Con coverage. This little hard drive can carry all your movies, music, any other media, stream it wirelessly to your tablet.
So I don't got to keep it on my hardware, I got to stream it.
Exactly, and it works with Android, iPad, whatever you need. The free GoFlex satellite app lets you stream all your content, and you can enjoy it while you're on your flight back to LA.
Back to LA, I can just pop a movie on there, watch it on my iPad, no big deal.
No big deal at all. Go to Seagate.com/iFanboy, get 10% off the Seagate GoFlex satellite hard drive, only for iFanboy viewers, so go get that.
And thank you again for Seagate for sponsoring our coverage.
Got a sign from the